Today I speak with Kimberley, a mother of a spirited 19-month-old daughter. We share a candid yet light-hearted conversation about the realities of bringing life into the world. There are many nuggets to take away from this conversation, some of which are shunning the term bouncing back in favour of acknowledging the upgrade you gain in your new role as a mother, and that our children are not blank canvases. They are born as whole people with innate wisdom and character. Kimberley highlights the importance of self-care practices as not being selfish but actually essential as a mother-child unit. When the mother is looking after herself, she's not taking away from her child, she's giving back. Kimberley also touches on her corporate work and Vedic meditation, something she practices daily and teaches on an individual and group level. I'm sure you will feel Kimberley's warmth and sincerity in her village approach to motherhood. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Can you tell us the age of your daughter, I believe, and how you came into motherhood?
Okay, so Frankie is, as I often say, she's 19 months old, going on 19 years old. She's my first and currently only child. I'm a what they call late in life mother. I don't know. There's all kinds of terms for it. So she was a surprise and not a surprise at the same time. She's just full of life, and she's come up pretty much fully formed. She knows exactly what she wants at any point in time, very specific preferences, and very good at communicating in terms of, not necessarily in words, but you can clearly tell if she's for it or against it. And so, she's just everything at the moment, good, bad, indifferent, just a roller coaster in the nicest possible way. And every day is a new day with her, which is great, but also sometimes just a bit tiring.
Absolutely, yeah. But it does definitely seem to describe what parenthood is all about, and raising another human. It's never static, is it?
No. There's always, I think I mentioned to you, you kind of feel like you settle in and you hit like a nice plateau, and you think, I think I'm going to enjoy this for a bit, and that might be an hour, might be a day. Maybe a couple of days, and then a new stage begins again, and it's like you've got to learn and conquer a new kind of level.
Yeah, but you seem to do it with such calm and such ease. I know that maybe that's what outsiders it's hard.
It's hard. Look, I think that's an important thing is I often say to people what it looks like on the outside on a particular day in a particular minute. I have people say, I was driving on Darling Street and I saw you guys wheeling down Darling Street and you guys looked, like you were having a great time and it was all so calm. And what they probably didn't see was, just around the corner before we hit Darling Street, she was having a temper tantrum, or she didn't like the way I had the canopy on the pram, or she was asking for food and I gave her the wrong option, and she was losing the plot. So I think, what it looks like from moment to moment can be very different, and what I'm experiencing in that moment or just before or after can also be very different. I think looks can be deceiving, and I think we just need to kind of not engage in comparison, which is a hard thing to do because we're humans. We will look at other people and go, that child's around the same age and they're already doing this, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's what I keep reminding myself.
It sounds like what we're seeing is the Insta moments, but not actually the reality of what's...
Yeah, the highlight reel, as I like to call it. It's the highlight reel. If I actually did a recording of the whole day, you get quite a different impression.
Maybe we should.
Yeah.
Somehow be able to do a 24-hour.
Yeah, just strap a camera onto her and just see what
So is motherhood something you've always dreamt of as a little girl, or you knew that would be your future?
Yeah, it's an interesting question actually, because I've spoken about this with various friends, and I don't think I grew up wanting to be a mother or assuming that I would be a mother. I knew I wanted to study, and I knew I wanted to work and have a career, and I knew I wanted to travel, and I assumed in the course of life that um becoming a mother would be something I either kind of want or not want. And it was only much later when my sister had her boys. So I've got two nephews who are kind of in their early teens. And when they came along, they really kind of made me go, I would like one for myself. But then, even after that, it took quite a bit of time before I had Frankie. So I don't know. It's a funny sort of, yeah. It's an interesting question. I wouldn't say I've always wanted to be a mother, but certainly in the few years leading up to Frankie, I did intentionally and consciously want to be a mother. And I am very, very grateful that I am a mother, because I know it's not um, something that's a given at
Mm.
any age, to be honest.
Yeah, that's so true. And thank you for sharing. And I'm really noticing that a lot of the mothers that I've had on the podcast haven't necessarily felt maternal or wanted to
Yes.
be a mother.
I
And
think that's so important to say that too, because I think sometimes a lot of the assumptions socially is that you're a woman, you either for or against, but it's not that. It's actually, quite, it can come and go in waves.
yeah, yeah, very true. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your postpartum experience. How was that?
Well, postpartum was, I have to admit, I have this thing, and I do remember my obstetrician saying this to me. She says, you'll find that there's so much focus on you now and on the birth, but really the real work begins when the baby arrives and you're sent home from hospital. And, sure, you'll come and see me, for the 6-week checkup, but then that's it. And she said, that's when the real work begins, that real motherhood kicks in. And you're trying to look after this growing baby, and with changing needs, and also yourself, because you'll find that you're changed as well. And I was sort of very naive, not in the sense that I thought that I would have the baby and over a period of time then go back to the person before the baby. I don't know why I thought that. I know it sounds very silly, very naive, but that just never happens. Or I don't think it ever happens, to be honest. And I don't really want it to happen. I think what you go through in pregnancy, giving birth, and then being a mother is forever. You're forever changed, and it's really an upgrade. It's not, I don't want to bounce back, and it's the term bounce back actually just annoys me. And I think it's starting to kind of not be used, which is great. But there's lots of, terms with pregnancy and having a child that I think are just not accurate, like parental leave. It's not leave, we're not running around the city having coffees and pushing our strollers around. It's the hardest work that I've ever done, and most mothers agree. It's the toughest, 6 months, a year, however long you have off, if you're lucky enough to have some time off, that you've ever worked in your life. And actually going back to work is the the hours I spent at work doing my, meditation teaching or my corporate work are actually far easier than the work than motherhood, the work that I do in motherhood. So yeah, for me, I think postpartum is forever. Also, your body changes, and there's no going back, and nor should you want to go back. I think you get an upgrade in um, your sort of from a spirituality point of view. I feel like I've been upgraded from a mental point of view. I'm much stronger. It's not to say that I don't have moments where I feel absolutely shattered. Physically, I think I feel shattered most of the time because lack of sleep or lack of, uninterrupted sleep is the thing. But I feel stronger as a person, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. I feel more resilient. I feel like when I go from, looking after Frankie to my corporate work to my teaching work, there is nothing really that phases me about that sort of corporate work or teaching anymore, because compared to the things that I resolve on a, minute by minute basis with Frankie, it sort of sets me up for everything else. If that makes sense. So I feel, yeah, so I think is interesting for me. It's like the one observation that I found.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for mentioning the name of my podcast in your summary, because postpartum is really forever.
It is really forever. I just don't think we talk about it, do we? So much focus is on the pre-birth and the birth, which is absolutely justified. But I think there's that, you know, post as well that seems to just kind of like that you're left to fend for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm wondering whether that is really the fear that is the kind of the motivation behind women not necessarily wanting to become mothers, because they're realizing that it's big and their life will be forever changed.
Mm.
And there's that fear of completely losing yourself. And that can be very destabilizing and
Yeah.
scary.
Yep.
I'm wondering whether that's kind of part of the reasons why a lot of women don't necessarily want to make a choice and want to tread lightly and not jump into motherhood.
Yeah.
They're realizing it is a very big transition.
Yes.
But thinking in terms of that being a negative thing, not an upgrade. They're thinking, well, why would I want to, become vulnerable in every sense of the word,
Yeah.
lose myself, perhaps even lose my job?
Mm.
Um, and and yeah, I wonder whether they're thinking that way in terms of, why would I want to do that? Because I will lose my confidence. I will
Yeah.
lose my relationship with my partner. I will lose. There's lots of
Yeah.
losses there, but there's so many gains too.
Yeah.
And I think of like a young girl who's going through her adolescence in the expectation that she's going to become an adult. When she becomes an adult, she doesn't really start waltzing around in her school uniform anymore.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to go backward.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just another transition where we go forwards. It's an upgrade, it's
Yeah.
progression, it's growth, it's all of those things. And I think some women would be surprised to realize that you do become stronger,
Oh
like you're
yeah. Yeah.
confident in certain things, more perspective and more introspective. And so, yeah, I share everything you said. I think it's nice to talk about how many things become better in our life.
Yeah. I think that's right. I think as humans, we do have like a slightly kind of negative bias, right? So if we're assessing, like you were saying, do I want to be a mother? You tend to kind of almost focus too much on the things you're going to lose as opposed to things that you may gain, because you feel like the losses are definite losses while the gains are potential, Um,
Yeah.
but I think going to motherhood intentionally is absolutely recommended if you have that ability to do that, because it is a lot.
Mm.
In capital letters, it is a lot, all the time,
Yeah.
and it never fades away. Like I might catch up with a girlfriend for coffee, and I might feel kind of, I my mum might look after Frankie for half an hour while I do that, but once the coffee's over, I'm into my favorite shop, Chemist Warehouse, at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm not sponsored by Chemist Warehouse. I wish I was, buying diapers, buying wet wipes, buying milk. So it is different, because when you're single, and even if you are in a relationship, you really only have to look after yourself, and you might think about your partner's needs and what he or she may need you to pick up from Chemist Warehouse, but you never like have to. You're pretty free, but when you're a mother, there's you're always a mother. You never turn it off, even if it's you think you've turned it off for half an hour, you don't turn it off.
Yeah.
But I don't, it's not, and I'm not saying it's a negative thing, I'm just saying it is what it is.
Yeah, we need to also, not be naive to that too. It
Yes.
it
Yeah.
is a full-time role. And
It
it's
is.
beyond full-time role. There's no end time
No,
to
and my mum says about me, she says, "I'm still your mum. You don't need me to, feed you or look after you." But that the sort of caring aspect changes and adapts as your child grows, but it never leaves you. You're forever a mum. Once a mum, forever a mum.
Yes. I could say a lot about that, but I'll just say yes. So what, surprised you when you became a mother?
um when she first popped out, I was the well, I had lots of thoughts, but the one overwhelming feeling and sensation experience was this flood of love. This sort of, and everyone talks about the unconditional love, but it felt bottomless. It was really profound. It was deep. It was expansive. It was not overwhelming. It was just much, much larger than me and much larger than I've ever experienced for anyone in my life. And I love lots of people, but it was just a completely different sort of sense of love. And it made me realize in that moment how much my mother and loves me and how profound her love was. And I actually shared that with her shortly after I gave birth. And she said, yeah, she had a very similar experience. And you kind of realize how much your mother and how much your parents love you as well. And that, I think, was very, very moving for me. And I was very emotional about it. And I still do get a little bit emotional about talking. It's just that, and I know people go, oh, scientifically, it's because there's these hormones, and there is that, there is. But a lot of that expansive, big love that I feel has remained. So, and my hormones have definitely fluctuated since then. So it's not all hormonal. I think a lot of that I had never experienced before. And that, I think, surprised me, which again might sound naive, but it was just the magnitude of it surprised me. And even now, Frankie's just started walking, and, she'll toddle, on the street, and, not want to hold my hand because she's a big girl now. Don't be uncool, mum, walk behind me, don't walk next to me. She's only 19 months, but I'm already copying some of that. And just that amount of love that I, feel for her, just, walking behind this little toddler has surprised me, and even the moments where she's very challenging and, she's just started tantruming, which we all know can be very challenging in public places. There's still a huge amount of love in dealing with that. And that has surprised me that I haven't been as, um, I guess initially before I became a mum, I figured I might be really irritated or short tempered. And I do have those moments because I'm human. But I think my capacity to love, to hold her in that love and deal with her, I think, is what has surprised me. So, yeah, that I
Mm,
think has been the most surprising thing, and the fact that that amount of love has sort of carried through from birth till now, and I think it'll carry through forever.
I think it will too. I see the looks you give her and
Ah,
like even
you
through the
see the look she gives me though.
little personality, but,
Yeah,
there's such a strong affection between the 2 of you, and it's palpable through the screen. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But I think it's important to also mention that some women don't get that rush of
yeah,
love initially, and that's okay too. That's
yeah,
it's not a reflection of whether you actually do love your child. It's just that everyone feels things differently in that moment. It's
yeah,
something that we can't, and you were saying you might be a bit naive not to think that, but I don't think that's the case because we're talking about individual human relationships and no one can really tell you how you're going to feel. You just feel it.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And I've talked about that with a couple of friends of mine who, like you said, didn't feel immediately connected to their babies when they arrived. And it is a bit, it's not spoken enough, like you say. There's so much happening in the human body at the time of birth, whether you are natural birthing or whether you're cesarean or whether it's assisted. And there's just so much happening, and it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling in that moment.
Totally.
And I think we just need to be aware of it because it's a lot for a human. It's like I remember one of the doctors, because I had preeclampsia, so I ended up having a cesarean birth, and post birth I was supervised very closely because that your blood pressure can spike, and mine did, like day 3 after birth. And the doctor had quite a few doctors looking after me, and one of the doctors said, pregnancy is a genuine stress test on the body, and it's okay.
Mm,
However you perform, it's okay, and that's why you're in hospital, and that's why we're here to help you get through it. But to not recognize it as like a real stress test on your body is not accurate. It's a lot, and it's okay. However you experience it, and it's
yeah,
okay to also get help.
for sure. Yeah. And you have a lifetime to connect and develop that relationship
Yes.
with your baby. So
Yeah.
not to put the pressure on yourself that that has to happen instantaneously the moment you see that little tuft of hair
Yeah.
coming your
Yeah.
your body or whatever. It's a long-term thing. It's a relationship. So
Yeah. Yeah.
showing yourself that kindness and compassion from the
Yeah.
very start. Yeah,
Yes.
so I know you've mentioned lots of little beautiful gems, but if you were to kind of what pops into your head straight away, what do you love about being a mother?
I think I love that everything is new again. And a lot of the times we think we've got to travel, to kind of get a sense of, novelty or newness, but really everything is new all the time. And all you need to do is have a toddler who's learning to walk for the first time. There is no boring walk. You can take the same path and she will find a new thing every single time. And it's not just like the fact that, flowers are blooming because it's spring or the sun is shining or the sky is really blue. It could be a little bit of dirt that she's just found in the ground. Utterly fascinating. And I think having that new perspective for me is really refreshing, and it really makes me, stop and realize that, life is here and now. Absolutely plan for things and, acknowledge your past and learn the lessons from your past. But the living is actually in the moment. And no one lives in the moment better than I think our kids, and especially when they're, at this toddler age where literally everything is new and everything's fascinating. Like she picks up these bits of dirt that I really rather she did not, and presents it to me like it's just the most incredible thing. And
Yeah.
I'm like, good job.
Yeah.
Because it's new for her, and it's new to her that A, she can walk, B, she can bend down and pick it up. And she doesn't even know what this is. She doesn't know it's dirty. She doesn't know it's not, she just doesn't. But she's utterly fascinated by it. And she presents it to me like, look what I just found. And it's like, yeah, good job. And
Yeah.
I think that's a great perspective to have on everything, right? That because everything is new all the time. We just don't always see it.
Yeah. We're just running from thing to thing
Yeah.
without stopping, and I feel myself doing this a lot, and I'm
Mm.
constantly calling myself out, is that, just stop for a moment.
Yeah.
Just look at that tree for 10 minutes. It's okay.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can daydream. Not every part of your day has to be
Yeah.
productive or what we're told
Yeah.
is productive. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so
So,
true. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
go on.
one of the funny quotes that I call them the um, my younger colleagues shared with me the other day, which is my current favorite quote is, and I mean, this obviously applies to people who don't work in professions that save lives. It's like we're not saving lives, we're just saving documents. And
Yes.
it's so true, because sometimes I think people get so caught up. It's like, we're not saving lives. There are people and there are jobs that are actually properly saving lives. And thank God for them. But I don't work in that area, and so I think when we get caught up in stuff, it's like, we're not saving lives, we're
Yeah,
just
love
saving
that.
documents.
That's such a good one. Yeah. Yeah. Um, Yeah, so I think like we often think we are the biggest teachers for our children. And of course, that is one of our roles, is that we're there to guide and direct them and teach them the things that we know. But what I'm hearing from what you're saying as well is that our children are always teaching us,
Yeah.
especially in those moments where we're forced to just succumb to, okay, we will look at this little bit of dirt in
Yeah.
this, we will be mindful. Is that the ways you would say that your daughter has taught you, is to slow down? I know
Yeah.
I've been taught patience as well from my children. What have you been
Yeah.
taught? Yeah.
Look, I sort of had the benefit of studying, Vedic knowledge for a long time, and it's the meditation technique that I teach, and part of that sort of body of knowledge is the idea that if you are privileged enough to have a child, the child that comes to you, the child has chosen you, right? So whatever lessons that the child needs to learn in this lifetime, whether you're a single parent or whether you've got a partner, your parents, they've picked you because they can fulfill those life lessons with you. Um, and also the other thing is that they come fully formed. And it's interesting because I've always had that view even before I was exposed to this body of knowledge. And I've always found it fascinating when people say to me that, or try to kind of raise their children in a way that suggests that perhaps a child is a blank canvas that they can imprint, their ideas of what they should be interested in, or what professions they should be trying to follow, or be trained in. And I've always thought, and certainly when my nephews came, I was like, yeah, they're fully formed. They know what they're here for. Um, and they know what they're here to do in this lifetime. And that my job as a parent is to support that as much as possible. So, and I know Frankie's only 19-month-old, but I know she understands when I say to her, you just take your time and you figure out what it is that, interests you, but in a genuine way that, gets you passionate and excited, and also, helps other people. And my job is to support you until you find your pathway or pathways, and then you'll be fine. And that's it. So I don't have any particular ideas as to what she should be interested in. If anything, I'm very much guided by her. So, all kids, look, I think all kids love music and dancing, don't they? They all do. But I feel like she has a particular interest because, like she'll be in the middle of a tantrum, and then if she hears a tune or a song or whatever, it would, she'll just listen, and then she might start swaying or whatever. So, so my job is to expose her to as many different things as possible. And then it's up to her to decide because she kind of already knows.
Yeah.
Um, but it is, and I don't think that is that different. I think most parents are now more tuned into that aspect. I think when I was growing up, it was much more parent led or parent directed, shall I say, and now it's much more, I think, engagement. I think is with the child.
Yeah, I do agree with you. Yeah. I would say more parent coerced or parent is boss, that sort of.
Yeah, I mean that's how it was when I was growing up, and certainly for my friends as well. It was fairly non-negotiable what your parents, you know, asked you to do. Asked
Yeah.
you did. There was not really much room for anything else. But now it's kids are different.
Mm.
They are they should be engaged more because I think they're exposed to more things, and so they need to learn from a younger age how to engage.
Mm.
You
Mm.
know,
Yeah.
as opposed to because I don't think life is directive anymore. I think there's so many more options, and it's not black or white. It's really shades of grey, and they're all right.
Yeah. And it's a tougher world, I think, now. There's so
Yeah,
many more challenges. There's so many. I mean, things are faster. Things are more progressive,
yeah,
and so that means that we have to parent differently now because our children are exposed to a lot more, and
Mm,
there are also different dangers. So it has
mm.
to be something we have to be very in tune with our
Yeah,
children. And but also I love that you've mentioned about her being a whole person. And I think I know I could have probably saved myself a lot of frustration about wanting my child to do what I wanted them
yeah.
to. And they did like the music until
Mm,
it got hard,
mm,
until the musical instrument got hard.
yeah,
And it's about also like letting go and just,
yeah,
okay, well, we can pivot. That's not something they're enjoying, and they know what they like. They know
yeah,
how they function. They know what they're capable of. They know, how they communicate.
yeah,
And I think the challenge is when it's different from our own
yeah.
style.
That's
Those
right.
and
Yeah.
that's the learning, isn't it? The learning between in a relationship is that you can't expect the other person to be you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really avoiding putting like, your baggage onto them, or the things that you felt you missed out on,
Yes.
or putting your pathways or the pathways that you wish you pursued in front of them, because you know, they are their own individuals. And I think there's a lot of innate wisdom that's already embodied within each human being when they're born. And in some ways, I feel like my job as a parent is to just get out the way. But, I'm only 19 months in, so you
We are
might want to check back with me in another 19 months.
we're always learning, and that's why
Yeah,
the reasons why postpartum is forever.
it
Um,
is forever. Yes.
so tell us about your teaching. What does that involve? Do you offer teaching to the public, and how do you look after yourself if that's
Yes.
needed?
So I learned to meditate like more than 10 years ago now. And really I did it, to be very honest, I did it for sort of the first 6 months, not really knowing if it had any impact. And it was only within like maybe after about 8 months to a year, various people started commenting on how I was appearing differently to them, including family and friends. My mom actually saying, "You're much less grumpier than you used to be." I didn't realize I was grumpy. I was just much easier to have around in life as a person, as a friend, as a partner, as a colleague. And then people started asking me to teach them, and I was like, "No, no, I don't teach. I will refer you to my teacher." And so a few people learned, and then over time, my teacher said to me, there is nothing in the rule book of life, not that there is one, that says you can't be two things, that you can't be a corporate lawyer and a meditation teacher. And that was quite a revelation to me, because I think I came from a generation where you pick one pathway and you just keep going down it, until you retire. So I was fortunate enough that, my employer at the time was very, or I should say my boss was very flexible and very broad-minded, and said, "Look, it was a practice that worked for you, and you've become a much happier, better colleague. So if you want to train to be a teacher, well, you can have the time, that you need." So that's what I did, and then I thought I would teach one or two friends, maybe some family members, and I've just kept teaching. And the way I operate is, as long as people um, ask me to teach them, I will teach them. And the day that people stop asking me to teach, then I guess I won't be teaching. So I do teach locally in Balmain, where I live, and also in Paddington, but more in Balmain now that I have my baby girl. And I teach over the weekends. Sometimes I teach on weeknights as well. So it's basically you learn this technique. It's very simple, that you practice twice a day, and I teach it over a series of three, 4 sessions, depending on whether you do it as a group or individual. And yeah, I've taught lots of people, lots of corporate people, lots of professionals, which makes sense because that's kind of the background I have. But also increasingly lots of mothers to be, new mothers. I've had new parents come to me. I've had people who are, in the middle of their pregnancy learning, knowing that it will help them when the baby arrives. So, I think meditation has come a long way. It used
Mm.
to be kind of on the fringes, and now it's very, very mainstream. And it's a matter of really finding the technique that works for you in your current phase of life. That's what I say to people. And there's lots of techniques out there, and I teach one, I think, of the more effective ones. And I'm always happy to have a chat with people about it. So I do lots of intro chats, which are, you know, complimentary, which are free. And sometimes people do the intro chat and then they come and learn straight after. Sometimes they come back 6 months. Sometimes I think I've had someone come back like 3 years later. That's fine. You know, because you need to learn when you're ready, not when someone tells you you need to learn or when someone forces you. You need to do it when you're ready, because I can teach you learning the techniques. The easiest part is practicing the technique in your life after you've been taught. That's where it comes, you really need to want to do it. And I'll give you lots of support, but I'm not always going to be there to meditate with you. But for me, it's been the foundational technique. It's, in terms of a wellness pyramid. I always say to people, you've got to figure out your wellness regime or your wellness program. And everyone should have one if you don't have one. And everyone's is going to look different. So for me, meditation twice a day is non-negotiable. So if that's all I get to do in a day, that's fine. You need to work out what your baseline minimum is, and then I layer on top of that. So if I can get a walk in, that's great. I always need to get a bit of sunshine. So even if it's 15 minutes out to the shops, my favorite shops, Chemist Warehouse and Woolies, it's 15 minutes of sunshine. And then, and then I layer on top of that. If I can get a Pilates class in, if I can get 2 Pilates classes in a week, it's like, woohoo. 3 is, crazy. And, and I just keep layering. But I think you've got to figure out what it is that works for you, right? For some people, it's going to be yoga. For some people, it's going to be a particular style of yoga. For others, it's going to be running. I have a friend who does marathon running, which for me sounds like absolute torture. She loves it and she's great at it. But
Yeah.
it takes a bit of experimenting. It takes a bit of time to figure out what it is that is your wellness program. And then you've got to stick to it. And I think it's hard, especially as a new mother. And I know for me, in the first 3 months, which was a blur, all I did was meditate and walk. That's it. My body was not up to anything stronger. So that's what I did. And then after about 3 months, I think it was my 4th month, I started doing Pilates, but really gentle Pilates. And then I just started layering, adding on as I felt I could. And the other thing too, I think that people don't talk about is progress is not linear.
Mm.
So it's really important to know, like, I have, it'd be great to think of it as, oh, and then I layer on Pilates and then I layer on the run. It doesn't work like that, right? So some weeks, like this week, for example, Frankie's, not well. So then it's like, no Pilates. And it's okay. We
Yes.
still, I'll still get out and get my walks, and it might be that you're just going up to shops to get something. So I try to walk as much as I can and not take the car, and then and doing the meditation. And that's it. And then next week I might be able to do 3 Pilates classes. So it's not linear, and it's okay. Because I think sometimes people kind of get a bit caught up. Oh, I've had a really good run, and then all of a sudden, my child got sick or both children got sick, and then I just, couldn't do everything. So then I just ditched the meditation as well. And I think that's where it doesn't work, because you kind of have to go, okay, so this week is looking really busy because I've got lots of teaching and I've also got some corporate work. So what can I, realistically do and still keep to a certain level? And it's okay for that week. And then next week, when it's less busy, you'll just add on. So, but it does take a bit of, you do have to be flexible, and you do have to know what works for you. Like, so you do need to know what is absolutely non-negotiable, and then what other nicer layers to have to add on top of that. And it takes time, and you do have to figure that out for yourself. It'd be great if there was a formula, wouldn't it, Katura? Like, if we could just give a formula out to everyone, that would be so easy, and I would do it if I could, but it doesn't work like that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for expanding on that. I think the message is it is important to do something,
Mm,
but we need to also respect that this is a personal journey. This is a season that we're in, and
yes.
we have to be flexible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know myself have often used my schedule as an excuse for why I can't do anything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the other, which I think a lot of mothers tend to fall into that trap.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they always become the one that misses out. So
Yeah. Yeah.
even if it's at times I've sort of just sat on the back on the trampoline in the backyard or lay on the trampoline, 10 minutes, I'm in the sun, I've
Yeah.
looked up at the sky, and that's all I can do that
Yeah.
day. But it sort of feels like you're doing something that gives you that buoyancy or that resilience to get
Yeah.
through all the other stuff, especially
Yeah.
when there's extra challenges, then we need it probably more, really.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I often hear, particularly with mothers, that they feel, or they feel a bit selfish, or they get a bit sort of like not embarrassed, but almost a little bit guilty. I think if they're doing something for themselves, and I say to them, the thing is, if you're not doing like when you do something for yourself, it makes you a little bit happier, even if it's just a little bit, if it's just 1%. And when you're happier as a person, you're actually a better mother, you're a better partner, you're a better colleague, you're a better friend. Like it's the same thing. It's not like if you're happier as a person, like you're 1% happier, it means you're taking away 1% from being a mother. It's not, it's the same thing. And I think it's quite hard. I think particularly at the start when you feel like, oh no, I've got to give my all to my child because she needs it because she can't do anything for herself. Yes, but you would also be a better mother if you just need to have that bit of time to do exercise or whatever it is that makes you happy, lying on the trampoline, or I like you, I often just go to the park and just sit in the park bench, and literally I feel like I'm recharging just by getting the sun. Like I feel my internal battery just going up a bit, and it's not going all the way up to 100%. But at least it's going up. It's being recharged rather than just continually just going down, down, down.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I often do say to people, it's not, you're not separate identities. You're all same package. So if you're happy as a person just by taking 15 minutes out to have a cup of coffee or matcha or whatever it is that you're drinking, tea, then you're actually happier as a mother, you're happier as a friend, you're showing up better even after that 15 minutes. And that's the key. You're not taking away 15 minutes from your child.
No, everyone benefits. And
Yes.
I have a little pet peeve with the word I'm spoiling myself,
Oh, yeah.
being spoilt.
Yeah.
And again, it's going back to what you said about almost feeling a little bit like they need to justify
Yes.
why
Yeah.
they're doing something
Yeah.
like sort of embarrassing.
Yes.
Would you ever say you're spoiling your child for looking after their needs?
Nope.
You never would. And I love that you've mentioned that we're part of a unit.
Yeah.
So it's one and the same.
Yeah.
I know it's hard, and I've been guilty myself of only putting my children first, but in hindsight, that benefited no one.
Mm.
So we are not spoiling ourselves if we are
No,
doing
no. And often I've had these instances where if I've, bumped into a girlfriend and I'm like, oh hey, be up there, and she's like, oh, I'm just ducking you to get a massage. I'm like, why are we whispering?
yeah. The
As though
secret.
like she's doing something, cheeky or naughty. It's like, yeah, go get that massage. You've got 3 kids. Like, if you
Yeah.
can get an hour or 45 minutes, go get that massage. Why are we whispering? And I think some of that is we have to own some of that we are guilty of it because we are either perpetuating maybe what we've seen our mothers do or what we think, and we just gotta, it's my time. I'm a person too. And if I believe it's going to make me a better mother, partner, friend, colleague to take 45 minutes out to get a massage, and I can do that and have my child be cared for by someone or looked after by a friend or my partner or, a relative, great. I'm all for it.
Yeah. And if I can say, add to that, that's how we lose ourselves
Mm.
when we are no longer recognizing that we have needs too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do agree with you. It's something we need to, I know society puts a lot of pressure and
Yeah.
expectation on us on what it means to be a good mother.
Yes.
But let's push back on that. Let's not take that on.
Yeah.
Let's realize, that's a big scam.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. It's
Yeah.
up to us to define what motherhood looks for each of us. And it's going to look very different for each of us because we are all unique individuals and our children are all unique. So what works for one child is not always going to work for another child.
Yeah, I agree. So, if we have a mother listening right now who's just in a period of her motherhood that she's feeling very challenged by, what beautiful words of wisdom would you give to her?
I would say this too shall pass. I know it's easy to say that when you're not in the thick of it, and I get it. But as you've touched on before, we are all in seasons of our lives all the time. And sometimes we're just not 100% sure which season it is. And children grow and develop all the time. And there's no two same days, which is good news and bad news, right? Because it means if you've had a really great day, you can replicate the same steps that led to that great day and not have the same result. But it also means if you're having a really crappy day, chances are tomorrow it's going to be different, which is the good news. And everything is just a moment in time. It does feel long, and I get that. I have had nights where, I'm up at crazy o'clock, 2:38 and a.m. and you're sitting there in the dark and she's hungry, but she doesn't want to feed and she doesn't want to sleep, or she just wants to sleep on you, but really it's on your face, kind of thing. And you're like, I feel very alone. It is very tough, this motherhood gig. Why did I sign up for it? Why did I think this was a good idea?
Yeah.
But it passes, right? Because she will eventually go to sleep. And you can look, and if the problem persists, like you need to get help. And that's the other thing is if something persists, don't just suffer. Don't suffer in silence. Don't suffer full stop, is what I say. There are actually lots of really good practitioners out there, and they don't necessarily have to be medical doctors. There are lots of good natural therapy practitioners out there. And you just do need to voice your concern, though, whether it's to your mother's group or your friends who have children, and they will come up with, I feel very lucky. I'm in a what I call informal mothers group, and look, I sometimes ask rhetorical questions. Like my question today was not really a serious question. My question was quick question: where does toddler rage come from? No one knows. It's just they're growing up, right? And that was just a funny ha-ha sort of question, and everyone had a laugh. And my answer was past lives. That's what I think where toddler rage comes from. I don't know, um, but in other kinds of questions when I've asked, I've always been, and I'm very grateful, inundated with suggestions. Right, try this, try that, or have a chat with this person. And I think there is just so much shared knowledge within friendship groups, within mothers groups, whatever you call it. But you do need to articulate your question. You do need to ask for help, or at least ask the question. And you'll be surprised by the amount of information that's out there, because what you're going through is not unique. There's a child out there that has done the same thing, and there's a mother out there that has also been up at 2:38 a.m. going, what the heck is going on?
Mm.
Um, but you do have to find your tribe. And I think that's the other thing I would say to the mother group that I was assigning was not my tribe.
Mhm.
Um, so I found my own tribe just by hanging out in the places that I like to hang out in, and started talking to people. People started talking to me. And I do this even now. And I think sometimes it might come across a bit weird, but I think, mothers need to acknowledge other mothers.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean mothers of similarly aged children, mothers of all each children, and I have, and maybe I live in a good area, what people say is a good area, but I've always found people where I live in the main street I hang out very, very kind, very considerate, and very encouraging. Like when Frankie's had tantrums, no one's ever really judged me or looked at given me the side eye, like, why aren't you handling your child properly? If anything, I've had people, come up to me going, yeah, it's a stage, isn't it? Or they'll just go, don't worry, she'll forget about it in 2 seconds, which I know are just sort of very small little comments, but they're just in that moment, it's just a bit of reassurance that you're not the only one going through this 19-month-old that's decided to plank and won't go into the pram. We've all had the child that planks perfectly. In that moment, you're trying to put them in pram and they start screaming. Um, and I think there's always kind people around. I have heard many stories of parents being judged or being told what they should do or shouldn't do. But I think overall there's a lot more kindness out there. But I think you do need to sometimes seek it out a bit or engage with it or be open to it. And I know for me, I'm always kind of, when I see a mother, I'm always like looking out for them, and that's not to say I'm sort of infringing on their space, but like if they look like they've come out and they've forgotten their wet wipes, which by the way I do all the time. I'm always ducking into a pharmacy buying wet. If the child needs a wet wipe, I'm like, here, have wet wipes. Do you need a diaper? Everyone kind of leaves the house this at a moment where you forget a diaper or change your clothes. Like the other day, one of the kiddies had left home and completely like trashed his pants. And I'm like, you can have a pair of Frankie's pants. They weren't pink which is amazing because most of her clothes are pink because she likes pink. They were actually a dark charcoal gray. And then she just washed them and then dropped them off at the cafe the next day. And I just picked it up. It's all fine. We're all here to actually help each other. It doesn't mean that we need to hang out and have, coffees. But I'm very happy to help you. So if you see me on the main street, you need something, you just need a chat, you need me to help your planking child or distract your child with a bit of dirt, just let me know. I think that's the key. I think that's what I found. But it is hard. Look, there are hard moments and it's hard being vulnerable and it's hard to ask for help and it's hard to voice questions which might seem like this is a silly question, but there are no silly questions when it comes to parenthood. You
Yeah.
just got to find your tribe and then be prepared to be open and vulnerable and seek help and have lots of laughs, really.
Yeah. Always keeping the sense of humor.
You
Is
need that sense of humor, don't you? And lots of coffee.
lots of coffee and lots of diapers, but that's okay. You can
Oh,
ship them
lots of
around.
diapers. But don't worry, there's always a mother
Yeah.
going up and down my main street. There's always going to be, I think that was actually one of my biggest things is like making sure I have enough of this. And I remember my mom said to me, we can always duck into the shops to get them. I'm like, yeah, good point. Like it's okay. You
Just
don't
get
have to be
you don't
prepared.
have to
There's
have
always, yeah,
you don't have to have every single
yeah,
thing possibly
yeah.
in your nappy bag.
Because that was for me one of the most daunting things. How do we get out of the house? Because I've got to make sure. Da, 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 da. And it's just like it's okay. You can always duck into the shops. It's okay.
But
Or there's always another mum around. That's what I say.
yeah. Yeah, I love that, and I love that you mentioned that your mother's group wasn't necessarily your kind of people that
Yeah,
you felt aligned with, but you didn't let that stop you from reaching out to others, and, that took courage, and
yeah,
if you hadn't have done that, you wouldn't have probably met a lot of these mothers that were
yeah.
feeling likely as you were, that they were trying to find their people as well.
Yeah. And I think, look, I've had, it's very 50-50. I've got friends who really had fantastic mothers groups where they're still catching up, even though the kids are now well and truly past, that sort of age where you need a mother's group because they actually genuinely enjoy the friendships. And I think that's fantastic. But it's not the case for everybody. And yeah, and then I think I just figured I'll just continue going where I go anyway. And then their mother's there, then potentially there'd be more my tribe. But I think sometimes you do have to kind of maybe look for your tribe, but they're always going to be there. And you just kind of then make friends. I mean, making friends when you're older is a bit more difficult anyway, right? And then making friends when you're a newborn, sleep deprived mum is like quite quite a lot. But it helps that other people are in the same boat. And if you can't string a sentence together on a particular day, they're going to go, yeah, you've had a tough night. And I think it's super helpful to have friendships like that where they understand what you're saying, even though you have not constructed the sentence at all. And they're like, I'm just going to go get you that coffee now. You know? And then we can have a chat after you've had the coffee. You know, like you just need to have that kind of level of honesty and that sort of just that understanding.
Yeah. And just be real.
Yeah.
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 Nobody's trying to show
No.
that getting the motherhood gig more perfect than you are. Let's just be real. Let's support one another and let's
Yeah.
help each other feel like they've got a village.
Yeah. And I think I genuinely believe there is more of a village available to us than we often acknowledge. But I think we do need to, like I keep saying, we do need to voice what we need, because I'm not a mind reader. I've never met a mind reader. We do need to voice whatever it is that we need, or just to have a chat and be open to it, and then go from there.
Yeah.
And there is definitely a village. I think there's always a network out there. I think we just need to be open and seek it out sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't give up.
No. And I get it, because I'm an introverted person, so I don't necessarily go out there and go, hey, so I do get it. It's hard, but I think you can't do motherhood on your own. And if you don't have your family around, I think you do need to plug into a village or your tribe, and they are out there. You just got to find them.
Exactly. It's a beautiful way to close our conversation. Thank you so much, Kimberley. I know that we've had a few hiccups in getting our podcast recording done, my fault, but we're here now.
Yeah. No, it's great having a chat as per usual. We could chat for hours. We could have, follow-up chats. Like I said, you could have another chat with me in 19 months and I might completely have different things to say, because it's a minute by minute, day by day roller coaster ride.
Yes, I'll take you up on that.
Please do.
We'll do part 2. But
yes,
thank you for sharing so much of your kind of beautiful wisdom and your insights and your reflections. And there's so many little gems that I'm sure many mothers are going to gain from this episode. So I'm very grateful for your time.
No, thank you. It's been great having a chat. And like I say, if you do see me on the street and you want to have a chat, or you want to borrow a diaper or a pair of pants, please do come up. I'm genuinely interested in what you have to say. And we don't have to be like, you don't have to worry, we don't have to be friends. We can just have a chat in that moment and it's all good.
Yes, thank you for being generous. And maybe even if someone is interested in your meditation,
yes,
I might also put some information in the show notes.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that it offered something helpful to your own mothering experience. If you are a pregnant woman or know someone who is, head over to my website to receive your free copy of the postpartum checklist and contact list. And if you'd like to be better prepared for your postpartum, both practically and mentally, purchase the Peaceful Postpartum ebook, a 52-page interactive guide on what you need to know and what matters most in postpartum. And so that we can get these conversations out to more mothers, I'd be grateful if you could like, share, and review this podcast, and we'll see you next time.